Before I start, I want to give all honors and glories and praises to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Wakar Kodash, Yahweh, which is the one true name of the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Shai, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, but his one true name is Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, meaning coming in a name. Ba means coming in, Ha means the, Shah means name, Wakar means spirit, Kodash means holy. Peace, blessings, salutations to the hopeful elect, and shalom to you sincere brothers that are scattered abroad, pushing forth this word in truth and sincerity. And shalom to you sincere sisters that are listening in silence, as the scriptures command you to do so. I am the brother Mashiach Razakah, and pretty much this lesson is going to be titled as the Speckled Bird Israelites. Okay? The Speckled Bird Israelites. Now you got Israelites out there that may look like a heathen, but they are an Israelite. Okay, due to their father being of the seed line of a so-called Negro, Hispanic, or Native American Indian, which goes back to the lineage of Father Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You have Israelites that are scattered, all right, throughout the earth. All right, we're scattered throughout the earth. Okay, so you got Israelites out there. They may look like the other nations because the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel, which consist of you so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native American Indians, we are scattered among these nations, okay? And the Israelite men, so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native American Indian, which consists and make up the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel, have slept with the women of the other nations, number 2 all the way down to 18. So you got Israelites that scattered throughout the earth. They may look like a heathen. They may look like the other nations when you go to the table of contents. They may look like number 2, but their father is of Israelite descent, which is of a so-called Negro, Hispanic, Native American Indian. Their father may be of the seed line of Jacob, but their mother may be number 2, number 3, number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way down. But their father is of the seed line of Jacob, which are you so-called Negroes, Hispanics, Native American Indians. So this is why we don't look on the outward appearance. Now you got Israelite groups or Israelite individuals that may judge on the outward appearance. They may see a person that may look like a so-called white person, but they not white. Their father is maybe a so-called Negro, all right, maybe a so-called West Indian, maybe a so-called Haitian, a so-called Dominican, right, a so-called Guatemalan or Panamanian, right, maybe a so-called Puerto Rican, a so-called Cuban, right, a so-called Native American Indian, a Seminole Indian, right, an Argentinian or Chilean, right, or Colombian or Uruguayan or so-called Hispanic, right. Their father may be of Judah all the way down to Issachar, maybe, right. Their father may be of this line here, and their mother may be another nation, but that don't make them a heathen. If their father is a so-called, Negro on down to Issachar, or a so-called, Negro on down to so-called Hispanic, because you have that. You have these men here, so-called Negroes, all the way down to Hispanic, which make up the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. They woman may be a woman of another nation. She may not be that woman may not be a so-called Negro on down to Hispanic. She may be a so-called white woman, and her man may be a Hispanic. That child is coming out of Israelite, which is a Hispanic, which is an Israelite, okay, which is of the tribe of Issachar, all right, or that child may come out a so-called, the father's a so-called Negro and the mother's a so-called white woman. That child is still coming out of Israelite. It doesn't matter if it has freckles, blonde hair, blue eyes. None of that determines the nationality of that child. That child is an Israelite. Okay, and we're gonna prove that in this lesson. Now I'm gonna show you some videos of some speckled birds, of some jakes. They may look like a heathen, but they Israelite, right? The scriptures say that the spirit bear witness, right? The scriptures say that the spirit bear witness. So this is just a lesson, because you still got Israelites out there. They may see a Israelite that may look like a heathen and call them a heathen, but they not a heathen. Okay, so let's look at this. Now this individual right here, I think he's either Cambodian or he's a so-called Asian. Okay, but look at him. This is how we know that he's an Israelite. Look, right? He's a Jake.
I'm the only team that could serve, nigga. This for the homies I broke bread with, split a 50 when we was still on EBT. I'm tryna move the whole gang out of hood to the family good, whole team gon' eat. Ain't about blood, about money, this family ties. If I'm kindred today, baby Kim. Pray for the day when the brodies gon' eat. Tell the end the motto was buying me. And I come back.
That's a Jake, man. That's a Jake. That dude right there sounds better than Future, Lil Uzi, Lil Durk. Any of them. He sounds better than all three of them put together. This dude right here. He a Jake though. Right? He a Jake. Look, his buddies behind him are Jake. He's a Jake. Right?
I'm the only team that could serve, nigga.
Let me show you more videos of this dude, man. This dude is a Jake, bro. Look.
I came from a village of scammers and killers. From the struggle, and I come back. I'm the only team that could serve, nigga. This for
I just played that, but look.
from the struggle, and I come back. Telling me shit. I think I did it again. Wait, only count one hit, bet I'll do it again. I don't care about making no friends. Told me take 5, but I think they tripping. No, I'm taking a 10.
He a Jake, man. He a Jake. He is a Jake, bro. He don't vibe with no damn Moabite. This individual is a Jake. Now there's another dude I want to show you, right? His name is Lil J, right? Let me show you. Lil J. His name is Lil Man J, I think it is. Let me see if I can find him. Lil Man J. Alright, this dude's a Jake too. Look.
Lil Baby said he would sign me if this blew up. Jay!
Let me see if I can get I want to get a freestyle. Right, Lil J. Man, I hate it when they do these damn ads, man.
I'm gonna have so much fun.
This is Lil J. This is Lil J. Lil Man J. This dude is a Jake, man. Look. He gonna sound way better than Future, Lil Uzi. He sound better than all of them.
Run up the city, you know how we turn up. I run with the boss, she call with a burner. Come to my crib, but you know I return her. If they catch you lacking, that might be a murder. You just a lamb, come in hand with a real one. I'm rocking with bosses, you know we mean man. Boy talking crazy, you know how we drill them. In the shoe boxes, you know how we kill them. Put up with a beam in the SRT, I cop a new whip, now she all on me. Tryna act black, but I'm white as can be. I'm white, little baby, no harder than me. Made the wrong move, now it's RIP. Flexing these bands, no heartbeat to see. Kicking chest like an MVP. Ball like a pro, I ain't on JB. Now we living lavish. Real time we ain't have it. Playing with a boss, got a gun, go grab it. Cop a new watch every time I didn't have it. Come from the mud, that sand really capping. Trying to make it out of the hood, keep rapping. In the Hellcat, yeah, I'm speeding in the traffic. Spending all my money, I'm trying to make it happen. Spending all my money, run up the city.
That bro's a Jake, bro. So we telling you, man, you got Israelites out there that look like heathens. And there's more rappers I can show you. But I just wanted to show you those two. You got Israelites out there that look like other nations, but they're not. And we got precepts to back this up. The first scripture I'm going to get into is Romans 8:16. And it says, the Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit. See, the Spirit beareth witness. You can't just point and look at a person and say, oh, that's a heathen there. No, you can't do that. The Spirit beareth witness, man. You got to go by the Spirit, right? The Lord discontinued us from our heritage. So you got Israelites that are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. You got Israelites that may look like an Arab. They may look like a so-called white person. They may look like a so-called Russian or British person or so-called Chinese person or Asian person. They may look like that. But they father, it could be a so-called Negro, Hispanic, Native American. They could be a Jake. And that's why we judge by the Spirit. And in those two videos, those two artists sound better than Future, Lil Uzi. They sound better than them. Both of those dudes sound way better than those other two guys that I just named, Lil Uzi and Future. Future be mumble mouthing. So does Lil Uzi. He be mumble. These dudes be mumble mouthing. Lil Durk, he pretty good, but I'm just giving examples. Those two individuals right there sound better than the regular rappers that's in the industry. Lil Man J and I think the other dude name was Khan or something like that. Khan. He looked like a Moabite, but he a Jake though. The Spirit beareth witness. That's what is example. Romans 8:16. The Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit that we are the children of the Most High. So the Spirit beareth witness. Right? That's why the Lord told us in 1 Samuel 16:7. It says, but the Lord said unto Samuel, look not on his countenance or on the height of his stature, because I have refused him. For the Most High seeth not as man seeth. For men looketh on the outward appearance. And that's the problem with a lot of Israelites. They look at a so-called white person and automatically determine that he's a heathen. No, that person that you may be putting your boot on, he could be a Jake. That's why when they come where we at, we try and see where their spirit at. And we'll know through the spirit, going by the spirit. Especially if you are a Jake out there or an individual out there, you may look like a heathen, but you want to serve and worship the Lord Yahweh Shemashai. You want to get this truth. You want to be intertwined with this truth. You trying to learn this gospel. You're an Israelite. Only a Jake is gonna do that. A heathen is not gonna want to come to the truth. A heathen is gonna reject this truth. Okay, a heathen is gonna reject this truth. Only an Israelite is gonna seek to get this truth. So this is why we don't turn away an individual that may look like a Moabite. He may look like a so-called Chinese person. He might be a Jake. If he's trying to get this truth and know the Lord is a so-called black man according to the scriptures, and he's willing to serve and praise and wants to learn this truth and grow in this ministry and seek this truth, and he believe in the names of Yahweh Shemashai, he's an Israelite. Only an Israelite gonna do that, not a heathen. A heathen's not gonna do that. Right? That's why we don't judge by the outward appearance. You got other Israelites that judge on outward appearance. And you can't be doing that. That's why scriptures say 1 Samuel 16:7. But the Lord said unto Samuel, look not on his countenance or the height of his stature. Right? How big he is, how buff he is, if he got freckles, if he got blue eyes, if he got blonde hair. That don't mean nothing. That individual that you calling a heathen could be a Jake. Just like we don't turn away anybody. We go by the Spirit. It says, because I have refused him, for the Most High seeth not as man seeth. Right. It says, for men look upon outward appearance. Right. He got blonde hair, blue eyes. He's a heathen. He an Edomite. No, you don't know specifically if he an Edomite. He could be a Jake. This is why we don't do that. Just because a person got blonde hair and blue eyes, that don't make him a heathen. That don't make him a devil, and that don't make him a heathen. He could be a Jake. That's why we go by the Spirit, not the outward appearance. Right. The scriptures tells us that. For man looketh on the outward appearance, right? But the Lord, Lord in caps, right? Looketh on the heart. The Lord looketh on the spirit. So this is why we be spiritual with everything. We don't go by the outward appearance or that's a heathen right there. No, that person that you calling a heathen could be a Jake. You gotta be circumspect. That's why the scriptures tells us to be circumspect. Deuteronomy 28:64. And the Lord, in caps, right, shall scatter thee among all people. The Israelites, which you so-called Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans, we're scattered among these 17 heathen nations, right? We're scattered among these 17 heathen nations. And as we were scattered among these 17 heathen nations, we slept with the women that were of the other nations. That is not of Israelite descent, which is not a so-called Negro, Hispanic, Native American. You have Jakes that had kids with women of the other nations, right? Even in the scriptures. Father Abraham, he slept with who? Hagar. She was a heathen, right? You had King Solomon, right? He slept. He had a woman of the other nation, Nama. She was an Ammonitess, right? And she bare him Rehoboam, right? Then you had who's another person? You had not Father Abraham, Moses, right? His wife was who? Zephyr, right? And she bare him Gershom, where she was a Cushite, she was a Hamite. So you had Joseph, the one that became governor of Egypt, right? His woman was a Hamite. She was an Egyptian. She was a Hamite, and she bare them who? Manasseh and Ephraim. So you had Israelites in the scriptures that had wives that were of the other nations. But just because they had wives of the other nation, they took on women of the other nations, they had kids with women of the other nations, that don't mean that their kids weren't Israelites. Rehoboam's mother was a heathen, and he became king over the southern kingdom. You can read that in the scriptures. Yes, Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, Rehoboam, mother was not an Israelite. She was a heathen. She was an Ammonitess. An Ammonitess is a so-called Japanese woman. That's what an Ammonitess is according to the scriptures that's dwelling on the earth today. An Ammonite is a so-called Japanese person. So Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, right? His mother was a heathen. She wasn't an Israelite. So this is why we don't go off of the outward appearance. I'm just giving examples. Because you got Israelites out there that may look like heathens, but they're Israelite. Right? That's why the scriptures say, in there, it says, in there, right? It says, in there shall thou serve other gods, which that's a curse, which neither thou nor thy father have known, even wood and stone. And these are the curses that came upon us. We were scattered among the heathen, among the 17 heathen nations, right? So due to us being scattered among these heathen nations, right? The Israelite men, right, had kids with the women of the other nations. And it happened. You got Jakes that look like that Oriental Jake that's rapping, and Little Man Jay. Little Man Jay, you got so-called Negroes, right? So-called Negro kids that look like Little Man Jay. That look like Little Man Jay. They got blonde hair, blue eyes, all that. They look like Little Man Jay, right? I'm just using him as an example. And their father is twice as dark. He's a so-called Negro, and he's twice as dark. You got Israelites that look like that. That's why we don't go off of outward appearance. This is Jeremiah 17:4. The Lord discontinued us from our heritage. That's why the scriptures say the Spirit bear witness in Romans 8:16. It says, and thou even thyself shall discontinue from thine heritage. See, the Lord discontinued us from our heritage, right? So we're scattered among the 17 heathen nations. So you got speckled birds, you got Israelites out there that look like heathens, but they Israelites, right? And it says, thine heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not, which that has happened, right? For ye have kindled a fire in my anger which shall burn forever. So the Lord, he discontinued us from our heritage. So you got Israelites out there that may look like a so-called white person, an Arab, a Russian, a Spaniard, but they could be an Israelite, because you got Israelites that scattered. They may look like an Asian, a so-called Chinese or Japanese, but their father could be of the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. Their mother could be a Moabite, and which is a so-called Chinese or Japanese person or Asian, but their father could be a so-called Negro, Hispanic, or Native American Indian descent. They may have probably took more of the features of the mother. So this is why we don't go by the outward appearance, because you got Israelites that are scattered throughout the earth that may look like a heathen, but they are Israelite. James 1:1. James, a servant of the Most High and of the Lord Hamashiach Yahushai, to the 12 tribes, right? The 12 tribes are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. To the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greeting. So the Israelites, the 12 tribes, are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. You got Israelites in Japan. You got Israelites out there in Rome. You got Israelites out there in Italy. You got Israelites out there in Germany. You got Israelites in Australia. You got Israelites everywhere. Hawaii, everywhere. You got Israelites everywhere. France, Britain, the UK. You got Israelites scattered everywhere. So this is why we don't judge on the outward appearance, man. We don't do that, right? Because your nationality is determined by who? The seed line of your father. Numbers 1:18. It says, and they assembled themselves, all the congregation together on the first day of the month, right? The first day, Salakia, of the second month, and they declared their pedigrees, right? Which that word pedigrees there, it goes into the meaning of the word lineage, right? Who you descend from, right? Lineage, descend from an ancestry or pedigree. Your father is determining your nationality, not the mom, right? Lineage, right? Salakia, lineage. It says, declare their pedigrees, their lineage, after their families by the house of their fathers. So your nationality is determined from the seed line of your father. If your father is a so-called Native American Indian and your mother is a so-called black woman, you're a Gadite. You're a so-called Native American Indian. It don't matter. There's no such thing as mixed, half Native, half black. There's no such thing as that. If your father is a so-called Native American, you're a Native American. If your father is a so-called Negro, you're a so-called Negro. If your mom is white and your father is a so-called Negro, you're a so-called Negro. You're not. It don't matter about that. That's how it is according to the scriptures. Your nationality is determined from the seed line of your father. The mother carries the seed of the man. The man fertilizes the seed in her womb, and she carries the seed of that man. That's just factual, right? And it says by the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names, right, from 20 years old and upward, by their Paul. See, so your nationality is determined from the seed line of your fathers, right? This is Psalms 106:32. They angered him also at the waters of the strife, and this is talking about Israel here, so that it went ill with Moses for their sakes, because the nation of Israel, they learned the way of the heathen. They mingled among the heathen and they learned their works. This is talking about Israel here, and this is to prove as an example that we're scattered among the heathen and we learned their works. So you got Israelites out there again that may look like a heathen, but they are Israelite, right? Because they provoked his spirit so that he spake advisedly with his lips. Verse 34, they did not, it says, they did not destroy the nations concerning whom the Lord commanded them. Verse 35, but were mingled among the heathen and learned their works. So we're scattered among the heathen, and as we're scattered among the heathen, we learned their works. So you got Israelites out there, you got the speckled birds, you got Israelites out there. They may look like a so-called Arab, they may look like a so-called Chinese person, they may look like a Japanese person, a Cambodian, an Asian. You know, they may look like a white, so-called white person, right? They may look like African or whatever type ethnicity out there, but their father is a so-called, maybe a so-called Negro, Hispanic, or Native American Indian. Because your father determines your nationality, so it doesn't matter about their mother. So this is why we don't go by outward appearance. And I shared that, man, for an example. You got Israelites out there that may look like a heathen, but they are Israelite, man. You got the speckled bird Israelites. So, hey, Lord willing, this lesson is edifying. On to the next one. Shalom.